The little girl screamed as the masked gunman grabbed the nearest father and dragged him into the middle of the crowded bank. Mothers cried. Children buried their faces in trembling arms. Phones lay scattered across the polished floor, and the silence that followed felt heavier than fear itself. The criminal laughed as he shoved the exhausted-looking single dad to his knees, convinced he had picked the weakest person in the room. What he didn't know was that beneath the faded jeans, worn work boots, and tired eyes was a man who had survived missions no one would ever hear about. He believed he had taken an ordinary father hostage. Instead, he had unknowingly chosen a former special operations soldier who had already risked his life countless times to protect complete strangers. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves another chance and that ordinary people can carry extraordinary courage inside them, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who loves inspiring stories, and subscribe to the channel Hardworking Dad. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts around the world. The man's name was Rowan Mercer. At first glance he looked exactly like thousands of hardworking fathers who woke before sunrise every day, worked long shifts, and returned home carrying groceries instead of glory. His 7-year-old daughter, Nora, believed her father repaired electrical systems because that was all she had ever known. She never knew the medals hidden in a dusty box inside the attic or the photographs tucked away where she would never accidentally discover them. Rowan had promised himself the day his wife passed away that his daughter would grow up with peace instead of stories about violence. He had buried his past along with the uniform he once wore, choosing bedtime stories over battlefield memories and school projects over classified operations. That bright Tuesday morning had started like every other day. Sunlight poured across the quiet streets as Rowan held Nora's tiny hand while walking toward the neighborhood bank. They were laughing about a school science project involving butterflies. Nora insisted butterflies remembered every flower they visited, while Rowan pretended to believe her completely. Their conversation carried the innocence he had spent years protecting. Nothing about the warm morning hinted that everything would change within minutes. Inside the bank, people stood patiently in line. An elderly couple counted retirement papers. A young mother bounced her baby gently. A college student nervously checked tuition documents. Rowan smiled politely at everyone while Nora admired colorful balloons tied near the customer service desk for a community event. It looked like the safest place in town. Then chaos exploded without warning. The front doors slammed open as 3 armed men stormed inside wearing black masks. One fired into the ceiling, sending shattered tiles raining onto terrified customers. Another locked the entrance while the third shouted orders with cold confidence. Panic spread instantly. Parents hugged children tightly. Several people collapsed to the floor in tears. Every heartbeat seemed loud enough to hear. Rowan's instincts returned before his thoughts did. Years of training awakened inside him like something that had only been sleeping. His breathing slowed. His eyes quietly measured exits, distances, weapons, blind spots, reflections in the windows, and the nervous movements of every criminal. He never moved suddenly because he understood something everyone else did not. Survival belonged to patience before action. Nora clung to him with shaking hands. Rowan wrapped one arm around her shoulders while whispering comforting words into her hair, promising everything would be okay. Deep inside, however, he understood that promises only mattered if he could keep them. The leader of the criminals wanted leverage. He marched through the frightened crowd searching for someone who appeared harmless. His gaze settled on Rowan. He saw an exhausted father carrying a small backpack with crayons sticking out of the side pocket. He saw worn boots, tired clothes, and gentle eyes. Weakness, he thought. He yanked Rowan away from Nora and forced him toward the center of the lobby. For the first time in years, Rowan looked directly into danger without looking away. The criminals demanded millions in cash and safe passage. Police surrounded the building within minutes, filling the streets with flashing lights. Television helicopters circled overhead as frightened families gathered behind barricades praying their loved ones would come home alive. Inside, time crawled painfully. Children cried from hunger. An elderly man struggled to breathe. A pregnant woman quietly fought panic attacks. Rowan watched every face, recognizing the same fear he had seen in villages far away during another lifetime. The difference was that now these people were neighbors, parents, teachers, and grandparents. He knew he could not simply save himself. He had to save everyone. Hours passed beneath the bright afternoon sun streaming through the shattered windows. One nervous gunman paced constantly, his hands trembling. Another argued with the leader about the growing police presence outside. Rowan noticed mistakes beginning to appear. Fear was making the criminals careless. He gently encouraged frightened hostages to stay calm without drawing attention. He silently helped an elderly woman steady her breathing. He distracted frightened children by pointing toward clouds drifting outside, reminding them that the sky remained beautiful despite the darkness inside the building. Even in captivity, compassion became its own kind of strength. The leader grew frustrated. He ordered Rowan to carry bags of money while keeping him close as a human shield. Exactly where Rowan wanted to be. His military training had taught him that every operation depended upon timing rather than speed. Rushing created mistakes. Waiting created opportunities. He watched reflections in polished marble, counted footsteps, memorized reload habits, and listened carefully to every police announcement echoing through loudspeakers outside. When one criminal accidentally dropped an extra magazine, Rowan understood exhaustion was winning. The turning point arrived unexpectedly. Nora's frightened voice echoed across the room after another child began crying uncontrollably. Despite her own fear, she crawled beside the younger boy and gently held his hand. She smiled through tears simply to comfort someone else. Watching his daughter choose kindness instead of panic filled Rowan with overwhelming pride. He realized she had already become braver than she knew. That single moment reminded him exactly why he had left special operations behind. Not because he feared danger. Because he wanted to raise someone who believed courage meant protecting others. Outside, negotiators continued talking while tactical officers prepared for every possible outcome. They knew little about the quiet father inside except one classified message that had reached command minutes earlier. A retired special operations operator was among the hostages. Every experienced officer understood the significance immediately. Yet Rowan never expected rescue. He prepared to become it. Late in the afternoon, the leader forced several hostages toward the entrance, intending to create confusion. As he shoved Rowan forward again, everything aligned perfectly. One criminal glanced toward the windows. Another adjusted his slipping mask. The leader shifted his weapon for less than a second. It was enough. Years of disciplined training exploded into motion with breathtaking precision. Rowan moved faster than anyone believed possible. He redirected the leader's weapon away from nearby children, drove him to the ground, and used controlled force to disable him before another criminal could react. The second attacker rushed forward only to lose balance after Rowan used the heavy money bag as a shield and distraction. The third reached for his rifle, but frightened hostages, inspired by Rowan's courage, found strength of their own. Together they helped create the opening officers outside had been waiting for. The tactical team stormed through the doors within seconds. The entire confrontation ended almost as quickly as it had begun. No innocent lives were lost. Silence replaced terror. Parents embraced children. Tears flowed freely. Police officers hurried from person to person ensuring everyone was safe. Nora sprinted across the lobby and threw herself into her father's arms. Rowan held her tightly, finally allowing the weight of the day to settle onto his shoulders. Only then did several officers quietly approach him. Without saying much, one of them simply nodded with deep respect. It was the kind of silent recognition shared only by those who understood sacrifices never spoken aloud. Reporters waited outside hoping to discover the mysterious father's identity. Cameras flashed endlessly. Questions filled the air. Rowan politely declined every interview. He had never fought for attention before, and he would not start now. Instead, he carried Nora toward their old pickup truck beneath the golden afternoon sunlight. She looked up at him with innocent curiosity, finally asking why he seemed so brave when everyone else was scared. Rowan smiled softly. He told her bravery wasn't about being fearless. It was about choosing to protect people even while your own heart was afraid. That answer stayed with her forever. News eventually spread through the community about the father who had saved dozens of lives. People brought homemade meals to his home. Children drew thank you cards covered with colorful hearts. The elderly couple from the bank visited just to hug him. The young mother whose baby had survived because of his courage called him the guardian angel she would never forget. Still, Rowan returned to work the following Monday. He fixed electrical panels. He attended school events. He packed Nora's lunch every morning. Because heroes, he believed, were not defined by extraordinary moments alone. They were defined by ordinary days filled with quiet love, responsibility, and sacrifice. Months later, the city held a ceremony honoring everyone involved in the rescue. Rowan reluctantly accepted an award, but when asked to speak, he kept his message simple. He said the real heroes were the frightened people who refused to abandon one another. The little girl who comforted another child while she herself was terrified. The elderly woman who prayed for strangers. The police officers willing to run toward danger. The paramedics who stood ready outside. Courage, he explained, grows strongest when people stand together. His words touched every person listening. Many left that ceremony believing heroism looked different than they had imagined. It did not always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wore work boots covered with dust. Sometimes it packed peanut butter sandwiches before school. Sometimes it carried a grieving heart while still finding room to protect complete strangers. Most importantly, sometimes it looked exactly like an ordinary single father. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment sharing what courage means to you, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Every act of support helps inspiring stories reach people who may need them the most. Glowing star special request: before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Real heroes protect others." We'd love to see how many compassionate hearts are watching today. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, Rowan and Nora walked hand in hand through their neighborhood park. Children laughed on the swings. Birds drifted across the orange sky. Life had returned to normal, yet nothing truly felt the same. The people who had witnessed that terrifying day no longer judged strength by appearance. They understood that the quietest person in the room might carry the greatest courage, the deepest scars, and the biggest heart. Rowan never wanted to be remembered as a soldier or even as the man who stopped a hostage crisis. He wanted to be remembered as a father who kept his promise to protect his daughter without allowing hatred to define their future. And in the end, that promise became the greatest victory of all, proving that the strongest heroes are not those who seek recognition, but those who choose love over fear, hope over despair, and kindness over revenge, no matter what darkness stands in their way.